You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. For grounding that ass from all the new age sass. I am your host, Jeff Henshaw. Cosmic Cousins is a soul-centered astrology podcast that is dedicated to honoring the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Hey Cosmic Cousins, welcome to a special episode of the show. I'm excited to be here with you all because today is Friday, which is Venus's day, and Venus just entered into the lovely and communicative sign, the mutable air, personal air sign of Gemini, the twins. So we're going to talk about Venus and Gemini today because this is a big theme for us here in the year 2020. Because Venus is in the sign for 4 months, Friday, April 3rd, all the way until August 7th. So we're talking all of our spring here, and then pretty much most of our summer, half of our summer, we have Venus in Gemini. So we're gifted this 4-month period with Venus in Gemini because Venus retrogrades from May 14th to June 26th. And Venus in Gemini, she's got a lot to say. So we're going to talk about it today. I'm going to break down the major transits of Venus in Gemini throughout this 4-month period, what the invitation might mean for you, and what it might mean for us in the collective. So if you are a Gemini sun, moon, or rising, you will really be able to feel into these themes in your life with Venus. If you're a Sagittarius, Gemini's polar sign, you will also really be feeling this energy. Pisces and Virgo, you're square to Gemini, so this will also bring up quite a lot for you. And for our air signs, Libra and Aquarius, this will be trining your energy. And Aries and Leo, this will be sextiling, which is also a harmonious flow of energy. So all of us will be having an opportunity to check in with Venus and Gemini this summer and spring. And so let's talk about it. Venus is what I like to call the planet of giving and receiving. Giving and receiving in equal measure. So this is a theme that we're going to be looking at as we explore this Venus and Gemini energy. But giving, right? What are you giving to the world? Are you giving your offering? And then are you receiving compensation for that offering? So Venus is connected to money. Venus is, you can think of the earth, Mother Earth, our divine feminine nature. So she rules over money, giving and receiving in relationships. She also rules over love. So what are you giving in relationships and what are you receiving in relationships? So this also is bringing us into the theme of self-love is really important with Venus. Looking out for yourself, taking care of yourself, self-care. It's also connected to the body, the 5 senses, right? So Venus rules over things like fashion, our self-worth, and anything that connects us to nature as well. So love, money, nature, body, and then values, self-worth. This is all Venus. I've got the Empress card out here, so you can connect to your Empress during this 4-month transit. And so I'm using the Next World Tarot right now. Normally, I'm using the Rider-Waite-Smith Centennial, but the Next World Tarot is really speaking to me at this moment in time. If you're not familiar with the Next World Tarot, it's by Christy Rode, and it is a New York-based tarot deck that honors and celebrates all body types, all people from all walks of life, and it is also a queer-focused deck as well. So I like the representation in the illustrations here. And it's called the Next World, so there's an apocalyptic feel to it. It's like post-apocalyptic. It's very revolutionary. It's got like an anarchist feel to it. And I think with everything that we're moving through right now with COVID-19, it's just a powerful deck to be using because it's the next World Tarot, and we are shifting into this new world, into this Aquarian age. And I heard an astrologer talk about this the other day. I can't remember who it was right now off the top of my head, but was saying something like, think of this as the year zero. We are completely shifting. The year 2020 is taking us back to the beginning. And when I heard them say that, it was like, for me, that felt like that was that shift into the Aquarian age. So we're in the year zero now, next World Tarot. This Empress card is beautiful, and I would like to read a message from this deck to you. So let me grab the little book. So this is what Christy writes here. The Empress understands that we spend our lives hurting and working. Without expecting a reward at the end of the subway tunnels, the outside microaggressions are the armor we put on. The Empress is freedom embodied. She asks you to open your heart and forgive yourself for taking time for nourishment and rebirth. I'm going to read that line again. She asks you to open your heart and forgive yourself for taking time for nourishment and rebirth. Reawakening the body and the mind, reevaluate how much of yourself you see in the natural world that surrounds you. Do you shed light and breathe life into your home, your personal things, and your domain? Are the milk crates and electronics that nestle in your space sacred treasures or collections of dust? Are you cleansing your space because you are an adult, or because you are eager to lounge seamlessly in your cutest frills? The Empress asks you to rework the body's connection to the space that surrounds you. The Empress asks you to rework the body's connection to the space that surrounds you. As you heal, you will see your work manifest as creative magic, and your grind manifest as whatever you choose. The Empress, or also Venus in this case, is surrounded by the ocean, deeply in tune to the depths of your subconscious, pulling out what no longer serves you and what you deserve to nourish. The Empress, or Venus, asks you to believe in sexuality without the institutionalized guilt that often rides in tandem to pleasure. In the next world, the Empress minimizes her arsenal to fully feel her spirit in tune to nature until it's time to splash color, glitter, and personalized armor. The Empress wants you to feel fierce, wild, and beyond your dreams. Now begins the challenge to fortify your heart in order to give and receive love to its fullest extent. So this is such a beautiful representation of the Empress, and I think by me reading someone else's words is allowing us to feel into the energy of Gemini, because Gemini is all about communication, and it's communicating new thought, new ideas, giving you a new perspective. So by me reading someone else's word, it's giving you another perspective to the Empress, or to this energy of Venus. And so Gemini, mutable air, is about adaptability. It is about the ability to see the other side, to understand duality. This is duality within the self. So parts of yourself that are contradictory, how do they come together and love one another? Gemini energy is also connected to writing. So I've written a list here. All my notes for you today are handwritten. Gemini loves things to be handwritten. So I encourage you to, during this Venus and Gemini transit, this 4-month transit, is a time to really communicate your love, Venus, through writing. Actually having a journaling practice, if you don't already, or even writing to those that you love postcards. And so this is also part of why I got the Next World Tarot out, because about a month ago, I was hanging out with my new friend who I randomly or synchronistically met while I was in Ojai, California. I think I had told you about that a few weeks ago on the show. And this friend happens to be a Gemini moon, Gemini rising with a Sagittarius sun. So all of this mutable energy. And we had been talking about their black moon, Lilith in Leo, and Jupiter in Leo a lot. And so I'm shuffling this deck, the Next World Tarot, and I have them pull a card. And the card that they pulled was the card that represented Jupiter in Leo. And since we had been talking about it so much, I just was like, you know what? I want you to keep that card. And so sometimes I'll do that with decks because, I'm really just connected to my Rider-Waite-Smith Centennial deck, the main deck that I use for readings, and then other decks, if it feels right in that moment, then I'll give the card away. And so once you give one card away, the deck is no longer complete. And so this Next World Tarot deck, I've now started gifting cards to friends. And so right now I have a stack of cards on my table that have little Post-it notes on top with their addresses written down, and I'm going to mail them to them. So Gemini likes us to write postcards, write letters. So this is something for us during Venus and Gemini, is writing our lover a note, writing our best friend a note in the mail. Venus is lovers. It's deep, intimate connection. So when we're talking about the Venus energy connecting us to our five senses, Gemini wants us to reconnect to the five senses through playful movement, mutable air, through new ideas, reconnecting to the five senses through your thoughts and your words. So this is allowing us to get really intimate with our immediate surroundings. Gemini is about your local community. It's about your neighborhood. So establishing relationships and connection, Venus, with your neighbors is really resonant during this 4 months. And so I know I'm already feeling that shift. If we're thinking about values with Venus and our self-worth, this retrograde period too is going to be a time where we reevaluate our values. And so it's reevaluating your values, your self-worth, your money, your income through conversation, through study. Venus in Gemini wants us to read books. So I just right before I got on to record this, one of my students who did the Brooklyn Fool's Tarot journey is now my friend. So already that is like a shape-shifting energy of Gemini as an example. A few years passed by, and for me, after a while, if it feels right, then I can be friends with my students if they're no longer my student. And so we've been texting on WhatsApp, and they sent me a picture of a book that they've been reading, a passage that reminded them of the Magician. And so the Magician is Mercury, and Venus and Gemini is going to answer to Mercury too. So when we look at these transits, I'm going to talk about Venus and Gemini and all of its major transits, but I'm also going to be mentioning Mercury too, this fast-moving planet. So we're thinking of Mercury, communication, Gemini, all of this is also listening to podcast. It's listening to news. It's Mercury's the messenger. Gemini's the messenger, the divine messenger, right? So we're also going to be really tapped into the messages that we're receiving, both from the news and also from spirit world. So I think when we're thinking about Venus, this is so important for us to be listening to podcasts or listening to news or reading news, our books that connect us with our divine feminine nature. Venus and Gemini is saying, I know there's a lot of information out there, but whatever information you're taking in, how is it making you feel good in your body? How is it realigning you with Mother Earth, right? So it's Venus and Gemini is actually wanting us to calm our mental activity, to calm our mental chatter by bringing our awareness to our body and to our breath. So y'all know I love doing that. So let's use this moment in time to go ahead and do that for a little meditation for embodied health. So deep inhale and deep exhale. As you exhale, allowing your body to relax, letting go of any tension that you might be holding on to. For me, I'm feeling tension in my jaw, so I'm just relaxing the jaw, relaxing the shoulders down the back. And as I inhale, I'm inviting new life into the body. So each astrological sign is connected to a different part of the body. Gemini is connected to the hands. You can think of the hands of the twins, these two different sides of ourself. You can also think about the way that we reach out and touch the world. But our hands are reaching out and touching our immediate surroundings. Like right now, I can reach out and grab this coffee mug, So it's the things that are close by, and Gemini is close proximity, short-term travel, our neighborhood. So just notice you can even play with the hands a little bit and maybe reach out into different parts around you, just engaging with the space around you, acknowledging the plant that might be in front of you, saying hey to it, saying hey to the honey that's over there, your yoga mat on the floor, just acknowledging your surroundings, because Venus is also our physical items, our physical world. And Gemini is like, I'm reaching out and I'm touching the things that are around me. So we're saying what's up to the things around us before we bring it within. So now, bring the hands together. And so you can bring them in a little prayer position, or actually, I think since we're working with Venus too, we'll bring the hands to the heart. And not the organ of the heart, actually the center of the chest, the heart chakra. So take a deep, nourishing inhale into the heart. And then exhale, relaxing through the heart and acknowledging the presence of your hands here. So the heart chakra is a beautiful sacred center in our energetic body, and it is really the center point of our energetic body. This is the axle to the spinning wheel of our life, is in the heart. And while we're in Venus and Gemini, it's nice for us to connect here. The actual symbol of the heart chakra, it looks like the Star of David. So there is a triangle that's pointing up and a triangle that's pointing down, and they're overlapped with each other. You can also see this shape on the Hermit card in the tarot. The Hermit's holding the lantern, and there's this shape of the Star of David, the upward facing triangle and the downward facing triangle. So this is important for us because the upward facing triangle is us drawing energy up from Mother Earth, right? So you can do that now, and this is very much connecting us to Venus, breathing in the energy from Mother Earth up into the heart. And now the downward facing triangle is breathing in energy from Father Sky. This is Gemini, the air element, the sky. And so breathing into the vast sky above you and then drawing it into the heart and noticing where these two energies meet. Venus, Mother Earth, Gemini, Father Sky, bringing them together right here in the heart center. And so this is a beautiful marriage of duality. Gemini is already about building bridges between duality, and I think it's really nice for us to connect to it in a bigger way, in a more in a way that's connecting us to archetypes and to energies. So in what ways in your life are you bringing your divine feminine nature together with your intellect? This is so important for us right now. And particularly from April 3rd to August 7th. This is a way that you can come back to and embody Venus and Gemini. So it's intellect and communication, thought and ideas coming together and realigning with the energy of Earth, your body, your five senses, what it means to be a human here on this planet. And so you might connect now to the energies within yourself and building a bridge between your feminine and your masculine. What does that mean for you? What does that bring up for you? Breathing into that. So a mantra that we can use here is, I deeply love all parts of myself. I deeply love the contradictions within myself. I deeply love the contradictions outside of myself. I bring healing to the world through the power of my word. I bring healing to the world, Venus, through the power of my word. Breathing that into the heart. You can also bring it up to the throat chakra too. The Sanskrit word for the throat is Vishuddhu, which means purification. It's through the power of our voices that we can then purify and heal the world. Venus in Gemini wants to remind us of this. So you can breathe the color blue into the throat, breathe the color green into the heart. Last few rounds of breath. Thank you as always for being here, cousins. Happy Venus and Gemini to you. For those of you that are new here to the show, my name is Jeff Henshaw. I am a soul-centered astrologer, a teacher, a poet, a healer, and I offer spiritual support by using astrology as a tool for navigating energy. So if you're interested in working with me, you can book a reading, astrologycousins.com. I offer 90-minute deep dive astrology readings, and in that reading, we'll get to say what's up to every planet in your chart and spend a lot of time going into your sun, moon, rising, how they work together, and how you can use that to empower your life. Also, I have a Patreon for the show. If you're interested in supporting me in this work and this podcast, Cosmic Cousins, you can go to patreon.com/Cosmic Cousins. I also have some new workshop downloads coming out. I'm going to have a workshop download on Saturn, understanding Saturn return, and understanding Saturn in Aquarius and all of the signs. All 12 signs we'll touch base on. And so I will be sending out a newsletter on the Libra full moon, which is coming up in like 4 or 5 days. So if you are interested in Saturn and how to become your own daddy or become your own adult, then this is the workshop for you. Saturn is the planet of responsibility, stepping up to the plate of our higher self. So if you are interested in that, sign up for the newsletter. There's a link in the show notes. So Venus in Gemini, we've already touched base a lot on it, but I think we can also, so we have the Empress card out, but we can also get cards out for Gemini too. So the Lovers card is the soul growth card for Gemini. And in this Next World Tarot, it's such a beautiful representation. It says the Lovers, and then at the bottom it says Air, Gemini, Mercury, number 6. And I'll describe this card to you. So there's a person, an individual that's looking into a mirror, and this individual has boots on, and then has a cane, is wearing a skirt, and has a crystal necklace on and a vest, and has half of their head shaved, and is wearing glasses. And they're looking in the mirror. The person in the mirror is styled very differently, but looks to be the same person, but appears to be maybe a bit more nurturing. And so the person, the reflection in the mirror, is completely in the nude, but they're still wearing that same crystal that appears to be a pendulum. And instead of half a head that's shaved, they have a full head of hair. And that reflection is stepping out of the mirror and is handing them spoons. It looks like measuring spoons. There's 4 spoons that they're handing them, which to me feels like nurturance, right? And then the other hand, the left hand, is massaging their neck. So this reflection, it is the Gemini energy, the soul growth is really about learning to love yourself and love the different parts of yourself. So I'm going to read in a very Gemini way these words from Christy C. Rode again, and what Christy might have to say to us about the Lovers and soul growth for Gemini. The Lovers are the electricity between contrasted energies. The Lovers are the electricity between contrasted energies, the choices between methods of survival and the discovery of a pristine middle ground. The Lovers are a sacred point where power emerges from the spine. The Lovers are the feeling of warmth and belonging, the meeting where you felt heard, and the gathering where you felt alive. The Lovers are 2 halves of a whole, intuitively joined at the hip and made for one another. The lovers intersect at moments of calm resilience and moments of pain and dysphoria, and they offer the wisest connection. That feels very Gemini here, the wisest connection. They offer a connection that truly reciprocates, one that truly holds you. It can be a person, a place, your own mind and body. The lovers ask you to trust this. The lovers remind us that love does not exist as one narrative where our connections are limited to people and places outside ourselves. Love is constant in a full heart or an aching spine. It's the decaying leaves of trees in autumn that remind us that struggle and change can exhibit our most colorful talents. As the universe offers pipe dreams, delusions, and wayward paths, the lovers ask you to embrace an indestructible bond that honors you for you. So this is powerful for us to meditate on. This is about loving deeply on your shadow. It's seeing the beauty in the contradiction within yourself, but also seeing the beauty in the contradiction in the world around you. So this is interesting because the North Node is moving into Gemini on May 5th. So the next year and a half we'll have this invitation to go towards Gemini, and Venus in Gemini is such a wonderful introduction into this North Node. So a little bit about the North Nodes. I've talked about them previously, but the North Node, the nodes of fate represent what's going on with eclipse seasons. And so the last year and a half, the North Node has been in Cancer, inviting us to go towards home and family and self-care. And the South Node has been in Capricorn, releasing outdated themes around ambition, authority, success, government, patriarchy. And so really, as we're coming to the close of this nodal axis of Cancer and Capricorn, we're really seeing that. We are being invited home to take care of ourselves, while many of us are releasing our businesses or our ambitions, and we're seeing a lot released in the environment and in the government, South Node and Capricorn. So the next year and a half, starting May 5th, the North Node enters Gemini and the South Node enters Sagittarius. So it's not going to be about directing our energy towards world travel, South Node and Sagittarius. And we're going to be releasing outdated beliefs we have around our philosophies, religions, and worldview, and going towards Gemini, which is, listening to the other viewpoint. It's listening to others with opposing beliefs. It's not listening necessarily with the mind, but with the heart. Venus and Gemini is asking us to listen with the heart. And I think this is something cool to think about is Gemini is ruled by Mercury traditionally, but the esoteric rulership for Gemini is Venus. So the traditional ruling planet is going to activate the personality. So Mercury activates the personality of Gemini. The esoteric ruling planet activates the soul purpose. Venus, the esoteric ruler for Gemini, we can feel that in the Lover's card. And we can also feel that with our Queen of Gemini, Stevie Nicks, who is often pondering deep questions, Gemini, about matters of the heart and love, Venus. So, if you're new to the show, we've been working on a project last year called Zodiac Queens, and Stevie Nicks was crowned our Queen of Gemini. And so right now, Venus is in Stevie Nicks.
Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above?
So Gemini has this beautiful way of having this whimsical, childlike energy while also having this deep, soulful wisdom. And Stevie Nicks is such a beautiful example of that. It's the ability to express dark parts of the soul in an airy and uplifting way. So someone else I think I really like to look at to understand Gemini energy and would have actually probably been my personal pick for Queen of Gemini is Anne Frank. And so Anne Frank is an incredible communicator through the gift of word that communicated about a really dark time in history on our planet in a way that was ethereal, lighthearted, and also whimsical. So that's also the shape-shifting ability of Gemini. And it also shows us the polarity to Sagittarius, which Sagittarius is about worldviews and world religions. And so as we have the South Node in Sagittarius, we might have this pull towards thinking that we know what is right. But the thing is, Gemini reminds us that we don't know the truths of the world, that things are always changing. And so what's interesting is when I went to download that little clip of Stevie Nicks singing, which, by the way, Mirror in the Sky. Gemini is all about the mirror, and it's all about the sky. Mirror in the sky. What is love? This is the energy of Gemini. It's just these deep wonders and questions about not only the universe, but more. Aquarius is more wondering about the universe, collective air. Gemini is like looking up to the sky and wondering about your immediate surroundings, wondering about the nature of reality. So anyway, when I looked up that clip, an advertisement popped up on YouTube, and it was from a masterclass. And this masterclass is from Neil deGrasse Tyson. And the opening line to this advertisement felt so Gemini, and it felt like a message for all of us. So I'm going to play a clip from that now.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong.
I'm like, that right there is some pure Gemini medicine. So when that advertisement popped up, when I was looking up Stevie Nicks' song, I was like, this is too good, because also Gemini rules over advertisement. And the thing is I'm like listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson's advertisement. I'm like, I want to take this masterclass now. So maybe you sign up for a masterclass during Venus and Gemini. That seems like it could be a nice thing to do. Spending money, Venus, on your intellect. Gemini, learning, right? So that could be something nice to do. Neil deGrasse Tyson is not a Gemini, but is a Libra, so an air sign with Mars and Gemini. And the reason why I thought that clip was so profound is because essentially what he's saying is, you're not right. Gemini is actually here to teach us that, to see the other side of the coin. So it's like, for me, what I'm sharing with you about astrology, I know enough about this subject to know that I'm right, but do I know enough about it to also know that I'm wrong? I think that was the gist of what he was sharing in that quote. And so it's like, Gemini is also personal air. So everything I'm sharing with you is going to be your own personal experience of thought and communication. So take what I'm saying and make of it what you will. So we're talking about, it's loving contradiction, both within yourself and in the world around you. And so it could also be a time where we're feeling that there's a lot of contradiction. And particularly in the United States, with a president who is a Gemini, there's a lot of miscommunication, misinformation that's being passed around. So this is part of it. It's listening with the heart, Venus, instead of with the mind. Steering clear of gossip is really important here. Gemini energy can have us wanting to gossip, but in a higher form, we're realigning with a uniting truth. We're communicating with divine love. And this is making me think of the Queen of Swords in the tarot. This is what I use for Gemini. Gemini's mutable. I think the queens feel very mutable. And swords, communication, air. So Queen of Swords in the Next World Tarot is called the Throne of Truth. So I would like to read you a little bit about the Queen of Swords from Christy C. Rhodes' perspective, giving us another perspective of this energy. This is what Christy writes. Fairness and survival are universal. The Queen of Swords believes they can exist in the absence of an emotional response. They enable life, family, and community to happen, even the times our hearts are closed. Neither are a construct, and both are essential to coexisting in humanity. Respecting others, eating, breathing, drinking water, being accountable. This enables us to think, live, seek seek purpose, and grow from moments of both turmoil and enlightenment. This is really speaking to what we're moving through right now. And what it's reminding me of, actually, is that this is going to be the first thing. So we're going to start looking at the transits here. So again, April 3rd, Friday, April 3rd, Venus enters Gemini. And April 3rd and 4th, if you're listening to this right when this comes out, you'll be feeling this. Venus will be trine to Saturn. Trine are when two planets are in the same element at the same degree. And so Saturn just entered Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius is asking us to take responsibility for humanity. And so Venus trine Saturn is quite a nice combo. Saturn is father, our adult, and Venus is the divine feminine. And so Saturn and Venus actually really get along because they're both quite earth-based energy. So Saturn is asking us to take responsibility, and Venus is asking us to take responsibility for the earth, for love, for the divine feminine. Saturn in Aquarius is community-focused, collective-focused. And then Gemini is about our immediate connections, our neighborhood. And so I'm going to read this again from the Queen of Swords portion, the Throne of Truth, and this feels quite in alignment with this Venus and Gemini trine Saturn in Aquarius. It's April 3rd and 4th. Respecting others. Saturn's about respect. Eating, breathing, drinking water. These feel very Venus to me. Eating, breathing, drinking water, being accountable. Saturn. This enables us to think, live, seek purpose, and grow from moments of both turmoil and enlightenment. It also says, the Queen of Swords believes they can exist in the absence of emotional response. They enable life, family, and community to happen. So the Queen of Swords reminds us that the harshest of these experiences, Saturn can bring harsh experiences, fortify us in order to eventually open up our hearts, Venus. The Queen accepts the challenge and asks you to do the same. So the Queen energy feels very Venus, and the challenge is Saturn. So whatever challenges are rising for you right now, it's asking you to accept this with an open heart. The Queen of Swords is devoted to her method of thought, as it mirrors the grounded and unchangeable qualities of fairness and science. Saturn in Aquarius is asking us to commit to science. And so Venus in Gemini is also an invitation for us to spend our money, to realign our values with thought, with truth. So it says this: if a situation deserves objective focus, intent, and wisdom, the Queen asks you to set your heart aside and make a just decision. So this is interesting. Saturn is coming in and saying it's not just about your heart and your love, it's also about thinking about the group, Aquarius. So we're going to feel that the strongest there, April 3rd and 4th. And then as we continue on this journey with Venus and Gemini, from April 11th to April 27th, so basically the second half of April, Venus in Gemini is trine then Mars in Aquarius. So Mars is also in Aquarius, which is about taking action for humanity. And the reason why these two planets are side by side for so long, usually Venus travels faster than Mars, but Venus is coming up towards a retrograde. So Venus is going to be within 1 degree of Mars for that, what appears to be like a 2.5 week period. So 16 days. April 11th through April 27th, Venus in Gemini is trine, making a harmonious connection to Mars in Aquarius. So this is masculine and feminine energy. Mars is divine masculine, Venus is divine feminine. So our divine masculine is going towards Aquarius, is going towards science, technology, community, humanity, and our feminine energy is going towards communication, the integration of duality. So those are in a harmonious connection. So this does feel like a time where we're going to be reaching out to community at large with all of the Venus and Gemini themes. So that is majority of April, April 11th to 27th again. But then Mars will speed on past Venus because Venus is coming up to her retrograde. But before we get to the retrograde dates, there's 2 things that happen that I think are important. For one, we have Taurus season start right around April 20th. And so when we shift into Taurus season, Taurus, our beautiful fixed earth sign Taurus, is ruled by Venus. So Venus is going to allow us to feel into some more of the themes of Taurus. And so Venus, we know, is in Gemini. So this year, Taurus season 2020 is answering to Venus in Gemini. So all of Taurus season, we have that to look forward to. And then on May 5th, that's when the North Node will enter into Gemini. The nodes of fate always move in a retrograde motion, so it'll start at Gemini at the 29th degree, and over the next year and a half will travel down all the way to the 0 degree of Gemini. So May 5th is that shift into the North Node of Gemini. North Node, again, is an invitation for us to direct our energy and our life force in that direction. Then on May 11th, Mercury enters Gemini. So we'll have both Venus and Mercury in the Gemini energy. And so on May 11th, during Taurus season, we will definitely it will feel like almost like Gemini season comes a little early this year. And then on May 13th, just 2 days after Mercury enters Gemini, Venus will retrograde at the 21st degree of Gemini. And so I find this quite interesting. I pulled up the United States birth chart, since that's where I live, and many of you who tune into this show are in the United States, although I do know that there's people in other parts of the world. But I just, there's a lot happening in the world at large, and I think looking at the United States birth chart could be important for us. So pulled up the chart, and the United States, July 4th, 1776 at 4:50 p.m. This is the birthday in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The United States has Uranus in Gemini and Mars in Gemini. So Uranus in Gemini, Uranus is technology, revolution, ideas. And so it being in Gemini it's like the radio. It's like a lot of information. It's innovation through communication. So that's at the 8th degree of Gemini. So the United States is going to have an opportunity during this Venus and Gemini transit to really get to know the power of its intellect through technology, through innovation. Uranus is also revolution. And then Mars is in Gemini at the 21st degree in the United States birth chart, which is interesting because Venus goes all the way to the 21st degree of Gemini in retrograde. So it's coming all the way up to Mars in the United States birth chart and then heading back. So having Mars in Gemini, this is the United States as a whole. It has a very alert Mars and kind of witty, energetic nature, possibly inclined towards sarcasm. So there's this natural mechanical ability to do many things and to do it well in Gemini energy, and that Mars energy, it's action and it's ambition. So when I look at the United States birth chart and see both Uranus and Mars in Gemini, this feels like a restless mental activity. Uranus is like electricity and lightning, and Mars is like action and war. So it is like aggressive words in a lower form, radical words in a higher form. It's directing the divine masculine Mars, the divine ambition towards communication that is socially progressive, Uranus. So we feel both lower forms and higher forms always in a chart, and I feel both of those with the United States. But again, it's interesting because Venus comes all the way up to the 21st degree of Gemini, which is the same degree that Mars in Gemini is in the United States birth chart, and then retrograde. So there's a moment on this date, May 13th, when Venus will line up with Mars, and it's an integration of feminine with masculine. It's like the aggressive words, Mars and Gemini, are softening Venus. Or maybe it is like aggression towards the feminine, the divine masculine coming towards the feminine. That would be a lower form. So we might be feeling some of that here in the US, and maybe in the world at large too. And then Venus starts to retrograde at that point, May 13th. Venus is retrograde from May 13th through June 26th. So this period of time will have us revisiting themes. So this really feels like a time where you might be reaching out to old lovers, Venus retrograde, right? Reaching out to old friends. Gemini also rules over siblings and cousins. So this could be a time that you're reaching out to them, particularly as we enter Cancer season. So Venus in Gemini retrograde is going to also be during Cancer season, so May 14th through June 26th. So the end of June would be a time to reach out to cousins and siblings for heart-centered conversation, right? Heart-centered Venus conversation, Gemini, and for healing. Venus retrogrades at the 21st degree of Gemini. So we'll travel for the first 2/3 of the Gemini energy. So look and see what you have in Gemini at these first 21 degrees of Gemini. For me, I have Chiron in Gemini, which is deep wounds around my communication. And it's in my 4th house, home and family. So I already feel that I'm going to be doing a lot of healing around things that I have going on with my brother and also with my mother. So look and see what you have in Gemini in the first 21 degrees. What's also interesting on May 13th when Venus retrogrades is that that's the same day that Mars leaves Aquarius. Remember, Venus in Gemini was traveling along with Mars in Aquarius for a trine for the second half of April. And then the day that Venus retrogrades, Mars then enters Pisces. So that is also a very emotional energy. Mars is now, we're directing our ambition in a much more psychic and intuitive way while we are revisiting Venus themes of reinvestigating our values, re-communicating to lovers or to friends, rediscovering the connection and beauty that we hold with our body and the way that we move it. So with this retrograde period, and also with Mars entering Pisces, it does feel like there's an opportunity for us to clear out old karmic patterns that we have around Venus and Gemini themes. Mars and Pisces, the end of the cycle, whatever actions we're taking at that time is coming to this closeout. And then on May 20th, the Sun enters Gemini, and Mercury is in Gemini, which is the ruling planet for Gemini. So a lot of Gemini energy. And so as the Sun enters Gemini, we will start to shine a conscious light to Venus themes. We will become very aware of what this Venus and retrograde cycle is teaching us. And then particularly 2 days in or 3 days into Gemini season on May 22nd is the Gemini new moon. And Mercury will be at the same degree as Venus retrograde. So that will be a time where we will go inward and plant new seeds around this Gemini archetype. In the United States birth chart, this will all be conjunct Uranus and Gemini. So it's planting new seeds around innovation and technology. Perhaps we could see that as being some sort of vaccine that's created for COVID-19. It could also indicate revolution. Uranus is revolutionary energy. So just pay attention to how the United States is getting activated and shining a conscious light Sun to the subconscious realms, moon of Uranus and Gemini. On May 28th, Mercury enters Cancer. So that will also be a time where we're shifting more towards family and home with this Venus and Gemini cycle. And then we'll shift into June. So during June, Venus travels from the 15th degree all the way back to the 5th degree, and will stay at the 5th degree of Gemini June 20th through June 30th. So as we're in June 2nd to the 3rd, Venus retrograde is square Mars and Pisces. So there's a little showdown between the Venus and Mars energy. This feels like a very emotional time of clearing out past karma in relationships, June 2nd and 3rd. And then Venus retrogrades all of June until June 25th, when Venus will station direct. That's at the 5th degree of Gemini. She travels all the way back there. And so then as we enter July, all of July, Venus is direct from the 5th degree to the 21st degree. And then as we enter August 5th, Venus, this is an important day, August 5th, Venus will be at the same degree as the North Node in Gemini at the 28th degree. So on August 25th, this is a date where we will get clues from the universe about the direction we're taking our life, North Node, in regards to the Venus and Gemini themes of self-worth with intellect, of bringing Mother Earth and Father Sky together, building a bridge of duality. And so that is an important day for all of us to really start to understand the invitation of the North Node in Gemini and what it's going to hold for us for the next year and a half. On that same day, August 5th, that Venus aligns with the node of fate, Mercury enters Leo, and we know Gemini is ruled by Mercury. And so there'll be a shift more towards creative expression and inner child healing and leadership. And then Venus will leave Gemini and enter into Cancer on August 8th. So that will shift us more towards loving home and family, loving mother, the matriarchal line, and ancestors. And so a lot of energy is going to be kicked up with Venus and Gemini, and it's a beautiful invitation for all of us to continue to be open to falling in love, right? Venus in the most unexpected of ways. Gemini is the unexpected. So also, when we're thinking about the hands too, Venus is creativity. So this is creating art by using your hands, Gemini. It's also acknowledging the beauty of this sacred part of your body. You might even hear in the background that there's someone playing the saxophone, and so I'm just picturing them using their hands to create beauty. So we get the chance to reevaluate our values. We also are listening to podcasts that are connecting us with the divine feminine, right? We're also switching up our fashion, right? Gemini is the versatility, so switching up your fashion. Now you see me, now you don't. Also, if we're thinking about making money too, it's opening yourself up to receiving money by using your intellectual flexibility, Gemini, by using your social connection, your social awareness. And so during this time, if you are able to go outside on long walks in nature, Venus is nature, Gemini loves going on long walks. It's switching up your routine, walking somewhere you've never walked before, allowing your mind to roam free. These are all wonderful invitations for us. And then I think one last date in 2020 for us to be aware of is on November 30th. So this is some time. On November 30th, we have the Gemini full moon eclipse at the 8th degree of Gemini. And so the reason we have a Gemini eclipse is because that's what the nodes of fate represent. The nodes of fate are the eclipse axis. And what did we say was at the 8th degree in the United States birth chart is Uranus. So that eclipse in November, there's going to be some sort of major upgrade. Eclipses are upgrade energy, while also deep releases around revolution, Uranus, technology, innovation. And also Uranus is socially progressive perception of the new age. And so that feels quite of a foreshadow of then in December, both Saturn and Jupiter will enter Aquarius around the winter solstice. So there's a lot of this air energy that's going to be shifting, that's making us really interested in community and each other, around truth, really getting to the heart of the matter, sitting on our throne of truth, communicating, using our words to uplift each other when maybe things are feeling uncertain around us. So we're going to really get to know our shadow this year, our contradiction, our ability to communicate truth, and to realize that we don't know everything, as Neil deGrasse Tyson shared with us. So a lot of information for you. Venus and Gemini would have it no other way. It's funny that, as I'm tuning into Venus and Gemini, she's making me write out all these notes, and it's a lot of notes. It's a lot of dates. It's a lot of facts and information. And so I encourage you to do your own investigation and to look and see what you have in Gemini in your chart and how Venus will come and bring gifts. Venus, you can picture like the Empress bringing flowers to whatever placements you have. So for me, having Chiron in Gemini, Chiron's the wounded healer. So if there's parts of me that are wounded, Venus is coming and bringing flowers to these parts of myself, particularly as it relates to my communication and my intellect and my versatility, my shadow side. But Venus, the Empress, if Chiron is not the wounded parts of myself, Chiron also represents how you are healing other people. And so Venus coming and bringing flowers to the healer in your chart is allowing you to receive the love and the compensation that you deserve as a healer. So look and see what you have in Gemini. Notice how you're going to be loving up on these parts of your heart and these parts of your chart. So Thank you, as always, for being here and tuning into the show. Again, you can check out my work, astrologycousins.com. I'd be honored to give you a reading. Also, if you would like to rate 5 stars, leave some comments and love, that would be much appreciated. So I'll read some of the comments that we've gotten recently to maybe inspire you to write some comments. This helps get the word out on the show. Whenever anyone leaves comments or rates 5 stars, it allows other people to find the podcast. So it's not letting me pull up the comments right now, so maybe that's not meant to be at this moment in time. But do send me some love, say what's up, follow me on Twitter. I have a new Twitter account, I have a new YouTube account, and sign up for the newsletter, and I'll see you next time for the Libra full moon, which is just a few days from now. So take sweet care, cousins, and remember, deep breaths.